Hey guys, welcome back to, what is this, part 3, I believe, on the Philco 1961 Philco 19-inch briefcase. You're probably wondering why you saw a clip of another TV playing. Well, I can explain. That was my Philco Town & Country. It's a 19-inch set as well that I restored 2 or 3 years ago. It happens to use the 12J28 chassis. It also came in a UHF as well as a VHF only model. Mine's the VHF only model. And you're probably wondering, well, what does that have anything to do with this set? Well, this set is a year older. It's a 61. This was a 62. This was the chassis that followed this chassis, which is a 12J27. And that TV you're watching has a 12J28. Well, what's the big deal with that? Well, in the last video, I talked about this resistor that's on the 155 volt bus. And the resistor that I pulled out of there, according to my schematic for the 12J27 chassis, said that it should be a 2000 ohm. But what I pulled out was a 2700 ohm 10 watt resistor. So that just gnaws at me. I went through both the Philco and the SAM service information. There is no mention that this resistor should be 2700 ohms. So a lot of times it bothers me on resistors when I pull something out of a set that's different than what the schematic says. So being anal, I put in what the schematic said, but it still was just gnawing at me. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back and look at that schematic for the Town & Country. And here's what I discovered. Here is that 2000 ohm resistor, just like is in the briefcase, although the bus voltages are a little bit different. But look at this. 2.7K in UHF equipped models. Alright. So 1 year later they decided to put that footnote into the service information. I'm just dumbfounded that they didn't put that note in here. Sure enough, mine is a UHF model, so it had a 2700 ohm 10 watt resistor to get to the 155 volt bus. So thankfully I kept that resistor. I'm going to take this one out and put the 2700 ohm back in. I don't quite exactly understand why there would be a difference, because what does that power? Well, most of all the horizontal is supplied by the 245, 235. But if you come up here to AGC keying, 155 volt bus. Same thing with the noise inverter. Same thing with the sync separator. And only till you get over here to the vertical, then you have that 520 volt boost. Okay. It also supplies the second video IF. First video IF is supplied by the 135 volt bus. And then the other piece is the tuner has two different B pluses. The RF has 135 and the mixer has B plus has 155. So I don't even know if this 155 is a true voltage that I should get. I'm assuming that's with the 2000 ohm resistor. The 2700 ohm resistor, that would be slightly lower, I would believe. Not sure. Not sure why that would be needed in the UHF model. I assume it has something to do with that additional, or that voltage going to the tuner. But I'm not sure. Maybe somebody with a lot more engineering knowledge can stumble along this and tell me why that would be. But we're going back in with this old resistor. Okay, it is, I mean, it's right on 2.7K. So it's kind of a pain in the ass, but I'm going to take that out, and I've got to assume that in 61 they just failed to make that notation in the service information that the UHF model should have at 2.7. So coming back in with that. Got the 1 microfarad cap in, so I'll be replacing that. This resistor goes back here. I just took it out to make it easier to get that out. Then also got in the this is the basically filament dropping resistor. It's a 33 ohm 10 watt. It'll be replacing, you can't see it, but it's on the other side over here. I showed it last time. And then be coming in with some a couple 1 amp 4007 diodes. Replace these guys right here. Once I get that done, then I really will be done with the power supply and be able to move on to that circuit board. But just want to show you guys that. If you're new to this hobby or you're into this, sometimes you're going to run into these things, and you know, a lot of times they came out with run changes even during the middle of a model year, and this could have been what they would have recommended for UHF and VHF, but as I found out from that Town and Country schematic, it appears these sets need that 2700 ohm resistor right here in the power supply. So that's what we're going to do. Get all that done, I'll come back and we'll truly start working on that circuit board. Okay guys, time for a little progress update on this Philco. Couple things. Replace the old diodes, the rectifying diodes for the voltage doubler with 1N 4007 1 amp silicone diodes. And also have replaced the filament dropping resistor, which ran into another little surprise. If you come to the schematic, alright, where I'm at here, where power comes in, we come to the switch, power breaks off to go form the doubler for the B+, and then AC comes off here and goes through this, what is known as a filament dropping resistor. Okay, and you can see here on my SAMs, it's showing it needs a 32 ohm 10 watt resistor before it goes into an inrush limiter, which is in the UHF model only, which we dealt with last time. That's been installed right here. So basically what this does is drop it down enough, and then the inrush limiter keeps it from, when you turn the switch on, to just pop all the tubes at once with a big inrush of current. So why does this set have a 12 ohm? And this is obviously a 5 watt resistor. There's a 10 watt, and this one is definitely not a 10 watt. So I got out the Philco service data, and I thought, well, you know what, this may be another situation where the UHF has a different value, and sure enough it does. In the UHF model, all that's required is a 12 ohm 5 watt resistor versus a 32 ohm 10 watt in the VHF model. Now, I didn't have a 12 watt or a 12 ohm 5 watt. I have a 10 watt 15 ohm that I put in there, which will work out okay. It's a few ohms higher, but you also got to remember that back when this set was built, line voltages were 117 volts. Today my line averages about 121 volts, so having a little 2 or 3 ohms more of resistance in here than what's called for won't hurt anything. But I'm still perplexed as to why there's an inrush limiter on the UH only model. As far as I know, the tubes are the same that were used in both sets. And if you go back to, you know, some of the other Philco series strung chassis that were like used in the Predicta and whatnot, they all had an inrush limiter. Didn't matter whether it was UHF or VHF. So I'm still puzzled by that. But anyway, it's always good to have 2 reference points on information, because I was perplexed again as to why this value was not 33 when the SAMs, or 32 when the SAM said it should be a 3210 watt. I came up with that. So anyway, we'll go back with that. I think that'll work out just fine. You can see I've removed the what they call the sweep board. This board mainly contains horizontal and vertical circuits. It's been recapped. I've replaced a few resistors and cleaned it up, and it looks pretty good. Alright, still waiting on a couple of things. Networks. Okay, these networks this one here is known as N2. It's the vertical integrator. Okay, there's quite a few components mixed into that single package right there. And then the other key one, there's 2 other key ones actually on this board. This is the horizontal oscillator known as N4. Okay, I'll show you that one in a minute. And I can't remember what this last one is. I will find it. It's on here. Oh, it's the phase comparer right before the detector diodes. Okay, known as N3. I'm having those 2 rebuilt by a gentleman out of Texas known as TV Restore Guy. So I have those ordered, and those will be replaced. And then this little guy right here, I rebuilt myself. He attaches right here. This is the horizontal oscillator. And what's really neat about this is it gives the values of what the component should be, and it's a very simple matter. This is an example of one of the capacitors that was in there. Not hard to deal with, and this is an example of a resistor that was in there. So what I did was just a matter of unsoldering those and coming back in with normal components. Now, for the capacitor part, I decided to come in with silver mica caps. They're very good. They're old school caps that a lot of radio guys use. They can withstand high frequencies and temperature swings. So that's what I use. They're 500 volt rated. I don't think they need to be that high. There's no indication on the schematic of what voltage they should be at, and these resistors, you had to use 2 carbon comps. They're half watts. The other ones here are metal foil, and they're or metal oxide, I guess, and they're rated for 1 watt. So I've done this before on a Town and Country, same type of module, and used half watts, and it's worked out okay. Interesting to note on this, in the SAMs, they provide a schematic that kind of lines up, and actually you have to do this one upside down. But what's interesting is this part is different than this. So I went back and I took this part number 30-6541-4, and I went into the service Philco service, and the schematic for this N4 horizontal oscillator is exactly the same as it is in the SAMs, but that is different from the actual part. So I went to the parts locator and looked up N4, the horizontal oscillator. Come over here, and this is part 6541-3. The part I have is 6541-4. So somewhere during the manufacture and after the SAMs was created and after the service data was created, they made a change. Now, I'm not sure why they did that. Maybe they found there was some horizontal issues after a period of time while after the sets went into production, and they updated to this -4 part number. Well, I had prepared to rebuild it based off of this, and that's exactly what I did. Now, there's not much different. There's only 2 components. This had a 550K resistor. This one showed a 470, and this shows 0.0012 capacitor. This one shows a 0.001. I went back in with the 0.001. I rebuilt it exactly to this. So I'm thinking that's going to work, and no more than the set's going to be used. I shouldn't probably run into any problems, but it was just a production change. So I ran into quite a few changes on this set compared to what the schematic says. I did test the resistors that came out of here, and they were all off value, so it's a good thing that I rebuilt this. And along with these 2 other couplets or networks being rebuilt and installed in here, this thing should be in good shape. Okay, so I've got these on order, and so it's going to cause me a break. I'm going to go ahead and solder this back in. When I get these, I'll install these 2 couplets back in, reattach that board, and then move on to the IF and sound circuit board. All right. So that's kind of an update where we're at. Pretty non-eventful. I did leave a couple of resistors in here that were originally in here. They measured perfectly, including this 100 ohm guy right down here that you can hardly tell what he is. I mean, he was 99.9 ohms. So I saw no reason to take him out. That many caps on it. There's not that many resistors. These networks have a lot of components inside them, so it saves some room on that board. All right. Okay, guys, gonna shift gears a little bit here and do something that I normally don't do, but since I'm waiting on some parts to continue working on the chassis, I thought I'd start addressing this cabinet, which we're going to completely redo in this series. And it's going to be repainted and it'll have a completely different look. It will not be gold anymore. Couple things. I think I showed in an earlier video the bezel, okay, of this. And it had some cracks down by the feet, which I have addressed to try to prevent that from being any further of a problem. You can see there's a crack. It was a pretty substantial crack, but at least it hadn't cracked off. And so what I did was I super glued it, and then after that was good and dry, I came in with some 30-minute epoxy and just really put a good layer on top of that on both sides. There's a small crack over here, and so now there's some added strength to that plastic, because these little feet take a lot of weight with the CRT resting really right on top of it. So and of course over the years I'm sure the set's been set down hard and whatnot, and you know, plastic does deteriorate over time, and so I think that'll prevent that from causing any further problems. If that breaks now, it's going to be a real problem, because it's really reinforced. This, of course, along with the back, will be completely cleaned and repainted, as well as the metal part of this cabinet. You can see there's some rust here. I'll definitely wire brush that down, and then my plan is to put this thing in a tub and lather it up with some paint stripping gel, this citrus. I've used this before. It works great on wood, and it also works great on metal. You can get this at Lowe's or Home Depot, or I think maybe even Walmart might have it. But the nice thing about it is it's made out of citrus, and I think it's well, I don't think it's biodegradable, but I don't think it's near as harsh as some other solvents that you can use to strip paint. So I'm going to give that a try. I'll show you the results on that. And then the other thing is this handle antenna combo, and what to do on this. From the first video I showed, you know, when I purchased the set, I knowingly knew that the antennas had been busted out of here, and I thought maybe I might be able to take some of the old antennas that I've got a stash of them up there, and I took a look at some of those and thought maybe I might be able to incorporate a couple of the actual antenna piece into this handle. If that didn't work, the other option would be obviously find another set. Maybe another set that is not restorable, but this handle would be available. And I did find one that actually came on eBay, another set just exactly like this one, probably in about the same condition on eBay, and I think the seller wanted $160 for it, which, you know, wasn't interested in paying $160 just to get this handle, because the odds of finding this exact piece, while doable, would probably take me years to do. But surprisingly enough, one thing that I do sometimes at night when I'm watching TV with the wife, I'll get on to eBay and I'll just look around. And I've owned this set maybe, what, 3 months now, and I thought, boy, the odds of finding that exact piece is minimal. But I was on eBay the other night and I almost couldn't believe my eyes. For 25 bucks, almost looks brand new. Exact same part, even has the gold handle, so I know it came off of a gold set. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. But it has two antennas, both of them great condition. Even the chrome is in better condition. Exact same leads, exact same connection. So for 25 bucks and a little bit of shipping, I actually found one. So this will go back up here. The only issue I have is this gold handle. It looks like something off of a woman's purse. It's kind of bright and sparkly, but hey, at least I'll have 2 working antennas and we'll be able to use that feature on this set. So, how about that? Yeah, and so once I get to stripping this, using this stripping gel, I'll give you a little look at how this comes out.